In this video, we will be looking at the different motion graphics used by different companies today. Motion graphics are used by different companies to represent themselves with. So let's take a look at our first motion graphics, which is actually the BBC. Now, the BBC is known throughout the world for not only the news that they produce, but also their iconic motion graphic as well. And that's what the audience will remember. So here the BBC have gone with a globe that seems to be sending a signal around the world, which is very clever, to be honest, because they are trying to say that their news gets around the world pretty fast to all these countries and all these places. Which they do. They're not lying about this. They do get the news around pretty fast. To have a motion graphics where you represent radio signals and transmissions as rings going around the planet is quite clever, at least. They show the main cities and countries connected as they are receiving the news from the BBC, and shows how they have thought about this motion graphic and what they wanted people to see in it. Now let's take a look at some of the lower thirds that the BBC have produced and are using at the moment. It seems they're using white text on a red background that really grabs the audience's attention, because red essentially means danger, warning. So we are more liable to look at this and actually read it because it is so catching to us, the viewers. Also, it helps that they've chosen these colours over a dull video background, so it really does pop out to us. Also, the text and the boldness that they have used is really interesting to look at, because not only have they gone with the red background of it saying warning, danger, but they have actually given us a bolder text as well, so it's easier to read and more eye-popping for us to see and read. Comparing the BBC's lower thirds to the ITV's lower thirds, you can see that there is a difference. That difference is not just the size of the text and the way that they have used the boldness, but is a difference that compares the size of the two lower thirds used. You can see that the BBC's lower thirds, they used more of the screen to show the wording and information about their news reports, whereas ITV have used less of the screen but more factual information rather than showing the time, showing what you're watching, as well as just their news story. Their news story is not as bold as the BBC, because the BBC have used an extra lower third to title the news they are reading as breaking news or urgent news. The ITV have used a smaller amount of their lower thirds in basic colours of a blue and white, and have just given you factual information on one lower third rather than having, say, 4 or 3 lower thirds to introduce each fact on its own. Whereas the BBC have used their lower thirds to urgently catch your view and your attention, ITV has kind of said, you know, the lower third is there, we're not trying to make you read it, it's there in a bold background colour that you would read normally, rather than being like the BBC, and have taken up more of the screen and used a bright colour and bold text to make the viewers read it urgently. Comparing these two in a small fact, ITV does have the more professional approach to their lower third, rather than the BBC trying to urgently get people's attention to read their news stories.